Hello, everyone, and welcome to another CavanKerry Press reading. This is our second reading in our fall reading series for 2021. I am your host. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director at CavanKerry Press, Dimitri Reyes, and I am more than humbled and more than honored to bring you this reading with Rebecca Hart Olander and Cindy Veach. So this is how it's going to work this evening. I want everyone to just give a big yay to the fact that Cindy released her book, Her Kind, this month. Yay! And Cindy, if you go hold it up and show the audience Her Kind. Yay! Such a great release, such a great book, both on Facebook and on YouTube when this is going to be put up, and in the chat on Zoom. Gabe Cleveland, our managing editor, will be putting the link in for Her Kind, which is available now for purchase. It is released. We also have Rebecca Hart Olander tonight, which she's premiering her pre-sale for her book, Uncertain Acrobats. Super exciting. Let me put you in here for a second, Gabe, just so you can show this beautiful, beautiful book. Check that out. So beautiful, so beautiful. All right, so a couple of house rules for the evening. As it is with these live events, sometimes things can get a little dicey, either with folks coming in or Zoom problems. If for any reason you have to close down the Zoom, check your Eventbrite or check your resource of Rebecca or Cindy for the other link. You'll be getting that within the 5 minutes. Wait those 5 minutes, look for that new link and hop back on. Again, that's just in case something happens during the Zoom call. And also just make sure that you stay muted this evening so you can give the respect to both readers. Throughout the evening, if you hear beautiful lines, if you hear things that just captivate you, if you hear things that you connect with, please put that in the chat box. All of our authors love to hear the feedback. And also, if you have any questions for this evening, after the reading, there's going to be a Q&A. So stick around for the Q&A, make sure you ask your questions and get prepared because Rebecca and Cindy are here to answer. It's gonna be super exciting. We're gonna start with Rebecca first. So Cindy, I'm going to beam you out as I can do with technology, just for a little bit. And Rebecca, let me get to your bio. Rebecca Hart Olander grew up in Eastern Massachusetts between Gloucester and Boston. She earned a BA from Hampshire College, an MAT in English from Smith College, and an MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Her poetry, book reviews, and collaborative writing and collage have appeared widely in journals and anthologies. A chapbook, Dressing the Rules, was released in 2019 by Dancing Girl Press. Rebecca lives in Western Massachusetts, where she teaches writing at Westfield State University and is the editor-director of Perugia Press, which is an amazing feat, so please give a praise for that as well. A nonprofit feminist press publishing first and second full-length books of poetry by women. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Rebecca Hart Olander.
Thank you. I am so moved to see folks in the room. This is really, really great. Thank you so much to the whole CavanKerry team for choosing and making this first book of mine and for gathering all of us here tonight for this event. Thank you to my friend and pressmate, Cindy Veach. I'm really honored and happy to be sharing this evening with you and your amazing poems. There's an email coming in. I can't mute that. And thank you to all of you who are here to listen. It means so much to both of us to have you here supporting and celebrating our new books. Uncertain Acrobats is the name of my book, and it was written for and about my father, Thomas Seymour Hart. It's a love letter of sorts, and it's also an illness and grief narrative in poems. My dad died in 2012, and much of the book deals with the end of his life and my deep missing of him after his death. It also dwells in memories of his life and how it intersected with mine. The book is separated into 3 sections. It's roughly organized by life, death, and grief, and I'm going to read you 10 poems, some from each section. I'm going to start with a poem called Tick Seed, which is one of 3 names I know for Coreopsis. It's called Moonbeam, and it's also called Tick Seed. Tick Seed. Coreopsis, little yellow explosions, abundant and obvious as sunshine. So why the evening nickname, Moonbeam, misnomer in my book, conjuring bars of white evening light, outer space, shallow graves. These are weedy, the greenery cut out for the side of the road, and hardy, like little stalks of pine. Mine came from my grandmother's garden, but not the house my father grew up in, where St. Francis stood waiting for wild rabbits and yard birds, his concrete skirts always empty of crumbs. She divided these from the strip outside her later apartment from after my grandfather died and Jason, the dog. This, the home of what was left after the house sold, of favorite things and of anything that would grow in a garden full of stones. Leaves like needles, drought tolerant, rabbit resistant. Give me winter, you patch of yellow fever, you loosed sachet of December forest. I cannot cotton your tiny joys multiplied, creating a cheery thicket year by year, nor your other name, because your seeds look like those tiny insects I fear and have grown vigilant about. How you suck me back to a time when everything was alive. Before the divorce. In the lush grass, my legs positioned into a V, my back holds the perfect posture only the new to sitting possess. I am a tripod, 2 legs and a torso, wearing a diaper and a seersucker sun hat, playing with a hose nozzle, the trickle caught on camera. I was not yet a year, my parents 27 and 22 in this scrap of summer, the comedy of small hands attempting an impossible task. Maybe they too propped themselves on the lawn, wearing little, chasing me when I folded and started to crawl away. Perhaps it was a picnic with sandwiches wrapped in waxed paper. Perhaps they were newly wed enough to kiss deeply between bites of the peaches they'd packed. And for this one, there are some folks here who were at this event. This is my dad's second marriage. The title of this next piece is, hi, Rob and Judy. The title of this next piece is the title of a Yeats poem, a poem. In a picture from my father's wedding, I loll on my grandmother's fur coat, hair mingling with pelt. For the ceremony, I wore a pink skirted dress with a white bodice, spray of flowers across the front. I kept asking when it would be time for cake. I was 7, already with my own wedding dreams centered on dresses and desserts. A Yeats poem was printed in the program. Go and love, young man, if the lady be young and fair. It was 1979, March, the year of the sheep. My dad was 34. Wasn't he old? Wasn't his new wife old too? One cannot begin it too soon. But hadn't he begun love with my mother before I was even born? And though the poem read, I am looped in the loops of her hair, would I remain his girl? Joint custody commute. Driving the expressway, my father quizzes me on my times tables, while on the oldies station, Elvis croons about wise men and fools rushing in. The buildings of Revere and Chelsea fly by, the dump a sloping hill of grass and seagulls, the Tobin Bridge a swooping emerald scaffold for a roller coaster. Dad confidently tosses 2 quarters into the toll basket, chiming green light bells. Swarms of swallows fill the air and the city comes up like Oz on Dorothy's horizon. I wear the rose-colored glasses that still fit at 12, turn up the radio when Herman's Hermits sing about Mrs. Brown's lovely daughter. Cracking the triangle of window in the Volkswagen, cranking open the sunroof like a sardine can, I let in the dirty silted river scent rising from the mystic. It is at once strange and familiar. When we get to Dad's, it will be time for napkins on laps, floss, and homework. For now, we are in the no man's land of the commute, where multiplication is an activity to pass the time. And I can just as easily recite the facts as sing along with the king. This is called Algebra. He tried to teach me math I didn't want to learn, hoped I'd stay in honors to honor my potential. Borrowed a book for the upcoming year to study over the summer, the text already battle worn, plus it was July and I was 13 on vacation with no friends except Cyndi Lauper on cassette, validating that all I really wanted to do was have fun, that it was what all girls wanted, only that. I had no idea he couldn't do the equations either, schooling himself the day before, then explaining it to me as if he knew what he was doing. I resented it, then thickly refusing understanding. How noble his attempts were, seen through time's convex mirror. He didn't have the key, only the bluster of a father pretending to know how to solve a problem. Each chapter a puzzle of calculations, and he held some faith in my ability to do the work. Anything with numbers, and I was a numbskull. Cribbage, cards, chess, keeping score in the program at Fenway, shading in the boxes for what meant ball and what meant strike, what meant error. He was 68 years on the planet, 41 of which I was his daughter. Unfathomable sums, but some things stuck. Complex roots, subtraction and division operations, how to carry the zero. This next poem, I had to read this. Cindy, my book and Cindy's book don't have a lot of confluence, but this poem brings that home. This poem does link the two, as you'll see later. So this poem takes a French term as its title. I don't speak French, but peine forte et dure is the term, which means being stoned to death, a painful death by a legal sentence, and being crushed by stones is one of the meanings of that. Peine forte et dure. I remember getting stoned with my father in the backyard of his house in Boston. All lightness and insight, intoxicating. Summer night, a creeping darkness, both struck dumb by the sound of crickets singing rounds with passing cars in the gathering dusk. When his final darkness came, he didn't want to look, but in life he'd walked through conquered as bold and sure as Thoreau, stacking cairns he hoped fellow travelers would add to, finding comfort in revisiting and in change. In elementary school, a field trip to the Salem Witch Museum, where a waxen Giles Corey died slowly beneath heavy stones over and over in his cell, his strained voice answering only more weight. On Corey's memorial marker, pressed to death, September 19, 1692. A pretty name for it, peine forte et dure, punishment for those refusing to plead. In a way, my father stood mute, unable to speak at the end. I'd like to think he was riding high on the scent of long ago rows of Sharon trees in the city, the chorus of cicadas. Josephine Grace. A lobe of lung, the plan. But he took it all, that German surgeon who told us afterward that it had gone well, but that of course you'd never run again. That was January 2009. From your hospital bed, we watched Obama's first inauguration, hope seeping into the room. Then rehab on the small track of living room to kitchen, then into the meadows with the loons and herons, eventually a marathon-long walk, a mile-long run, so you proved him wrong. Then 4 years laced with travels, Tarsiva, and gratitude. When the cancer returned, it took you in 7 weeks. December 2012, we saw Sandy Hook unfold on the news in your room at Mass General. We buried you in the back of a cemetery named for a saint. Your only neighbor in that expanse, a little girl from Newtown, whose family moved north after the shooting. She was autistic and could never speak, putting your lost voice into perspective. She turned 7 3 days before she was killed, and you'd turned 68 a few days before that. She helped me be glad for the length of your life. This next poem is an abecedarian, which is a form poem in which each line begins with a letter of the alphabet. So it's A through Z, and that runs down the left-hand spine of the poem. So you can kind of hear the alphabet as it goes through. The highway. Aphasia. None of us knew what to say. Malignancy mapped in the coils of your brain. The gathered words of your heroes under attack. Thoreau, Hazlitt, Willa Cather. Cancer cells coursed up and down the root of your spine. Diagnosis grim, 7 weeks all it took, though we cut and shaved and medicated, eradicating who you were to try to keep you here a little longer. Forgetting, more of it happens each day, but I still remember the glossolalia, language tossed like a salad, the words all out of their places. How tightly you held my hand when you couldn't speak at all. I stood beside you, tethering your fear, while under your cot, a circling jackal laughed, waiting for the inevitable. Kindness, was it risking seizure just to see your open eyes, or holding you under? Lyrics about liberation and release from a crowded house song. My dear one, your dying was the deepest splinter, amputation, dead bell, downed nest. I don't know what to think about souls. Outside of the State House, gas lamps ran parallel all the way up and down Beacon Street. It's not as if you quit. Shaking, your eyes rolled into your head and you foamed like a rabid dog. We put you down, telling ourselves it was mercy. So what now? Writing about your death is a way to avoid writing about your life. Things I know, a finite set and fading by the day. A bear-shaped umbrella stand, carved arms held like a ballerina in first position. Valentine Paradell, you wrote for your wife, that you broke a 5-minute mile. Wild are the moors of what I don't know, and now can never ask. Xylem, your well-worn Scrabble word. You at the end, your body straining, your brain wandering in fields of heather, half ghost. In the end, we were all zombies, speechless, holding our arms out, nothing resting there. Two more poems. This one's called Morning Walk, and it's written Mourning. Morning Walk. The yellow farmhouse down by the playing fields is for sale. I consider all the cows that have lived there making milk and manure. Across the way, the overgrown and near frozen community garden, and all I can think of is the gone. It's autumn again, and I am against all cradled in a half-red leaf. I talk to my dead father while I walk. A circling hawk stands in for him, and then a flash of cardinal over a field of dry grasses. Males are brighter birds. That's how he was, but he made me feel my own brilliance. A scatter of blackbirds crosses the sky over the road, pepper thrown into soup. It tangs and tosses, its fennel in my mouth and longing. And this is my last poem, the first line of which is the answer to the question asked in the title. The acolyte at my door asks me, how do you pray? It's always too late, and when I am afraid. I never remember to prune before the frost or to thank heaven for small favors, though I didn't forget to stitch the way my father cared for me into the fabric of how I understand love. A person can die of not being regarded inside in the important places. If the inverse is true, am I immortal? Is he? Should we wish to be? Around the house, relentless lilies of the valley, which I sought, planted and tended, but they bit back in spades. Do I even want this return of happiness? Years now, since my father left me in the snow. His eyes were closed and he had already said his last words weeks before. He was on a path through bittersweet and myrrh, kudzu and herringbone. I want to say I understand the mysterious ways in which God moves, but I am unmoved by mystery. Father, now days go by when I don't think of you. I'm making a life without. All the clocks ticking the same songs as when you were alive. How does the world sound the same, run by its consistent engines, though everything has changed? Thank you.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Rebecca, I've been dying to hear you read. Thank you so, so much. It's so powerful. And I would definitely encourage you to read the comments of all the love you've been receiving, how you just take us along in these stories. And someone mentioned they're just so floored how you can just bring these poems to us and bring yourself to read this work. And it really does feel like you're talking to us. And it's such a great occurrence of magic when that happens. So thank you, Rebecca. I can't wait for the Q&A. I appreciate you. All right, I'm gonna beam you out now. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. Now let's bring Cindy back on. 1, 2, 2.5, 3. Okay. Hey, Cindy, how are you? Very nice to see you.
Hi everyone.
I'm able to bring you into my living room with the magic of technology, so I'm so glad to have you here. Okay, so let's get this straight. I'm going to go and read through your bio. I'll let you read through your wonderful, wonderful poems. Also, I didn't mention last time, Rebecca's book is available for pre-sale. There's links in the chat box, so please get that. We have those books, so they'll be getting shipped out very soon, so you'll get it in secret before the release date. So do that. Also, Her Kind is available for purchase right now, and our managing editor, Gabriel Cleveland, is great at the clip. He would send them out right tomorrow, so you can place your orders now too. Cindy Veach is the author of the poetry collection Gloved Against Blood, also published by us, a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize, and a Massachusetts Center for the book Must Read, and the chapbook Innocence, Nix's Mate, as well as co-author with J.D. Scrimgeour of the script Imprisoned 1692, produced by the Essex National Heritage Commission. Her poems have appeared in the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, Agni, Chicago Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Poet Lore, and Prairie Schooner, among others. She is a recipient of the Salt Hill Journal's Philip Booth Poetry Prize, selected by Mary Ruffel, also another one of our authors, and the New England Poetry Club Samuel Washington Allen Poetry Prize, selected by Marilyn Nelson. Ladies and gents, here we have Cindy Veach.
Thank you, everyone. Becky, that was a wonderful reading. I think we all need a minute. It's just amazing. And congratulations on Uncertain Acrobats. I can't wait to read it. I want to thank CavanKerry Press, Joan, Dimitri, and Gabe for bringing Her Kind into the world. So many of you are here, and it means so much to me. So a little bit about this book, about Her Kind. In 2016, after living in the Salem area for over 20 years, I stumbled on the Salem Witch Trials Memorial when I was cutting through a side street. And up until that point, I'd succumbed to the witch kitsch narrative of modern day Salem. But for some reason on that day, in that place, I was changed. These were innocent human beings who were murdered. I decided to write a poem about each of the 20 victims, and this became a chapbook. At the same time, I was experiencing the end of a long marriage, and Donald Trump had been elected president. In my mind, I connected these events with the witch trials, and in particular with the female victims who are presented in Her Kind. Many of the poems also incorporate verbatim text from the trial transcripts. I witch. So what if I woke up changed? It's not like I'm a wild hog or some evil thing, not a real hog that follows you home, jumps into the window, a monkey with cock's feet with claws. Don't believe what my accuser says, or believe it. The fact is, my divorce attorney's building sits on the site of the prison where they kept the accused in chains in 1692. I came there with a silk scarf, worn loosely at the neck, borders looped with colored thread. He came with daisies, dark chocolate, and proclaimed, "My wife came towards me and found fault with me. Downstairs in the dungeon, they chained us to the walls to keep our spirits from escaping in the likeness of a bird." This is a found poem. Reasons you might have been accused of being a witch in 1692. You were a woman, you are middle-aged, you have an extra nipple, mole, freckle, or basically any mark on your body. You stumble over your words. You have an extra nipple, mole, freckle. When asked to say a prayer, you stumble over the words. You are married but don't have children. When asked to say a prayer, you are the envy of other people. You are married but don't have enough children. You associate with someone suspected of witchcraft. You are the envy of other people. You are perceived as bitchy. You associate with someone suspected of witchcraft. You're milk spoiled. You are perceived as bitchy. You are of low status. You're milk spoiled, or anything vaguely negative that happened to or around you. You are of low status. You have any mark on your body. You're milk spoiled. You are a woman. You are middle-aged. Rebecca, nurse of the accused, hanged July 19, 1692. At first, the jury returned not guilty, to which the judge said, retire and reconsider the not. After all, she had not answered the question she had not heard. Guilty of being hard of hearing, maybe mouthing what? Guilty of having a temper, arguing with neighbors. Guilty too of piety, 39 attesting to her deep devotion. Still, the afflicted swore it was her apparition that did the pinchings and prickings of their flesh. And in court, when she raised her arms, the afflicted raised their arms. And when she inclined her head, the afflicted inclined their heads. The title of this poem is attributed to Donald Trump. You are witnessing the single greatest witch hunt in American political history. Martha Corey, hanged September 19, 1692. It's true my husband testified against me because of the ointment and the sick mutt, the ox, and that night he saw me kneel down to the hearth as if at prayer, but heard nothing. In the end, he refused to speak out against me. But when those children cried there was a yellow bird who suckled my fingers, the judge deposed me. What bird was that the children spoke of? What bird was it? The devil did not take my shape and hurt these. I know nothing of this yellow bird or witchery. My mistake, I bore an illegitimate child, Benoni, son of my sorrow and dearly loved one. What bird was that? I wake up to a bird calling cheat, cheat, cheat. What bird are you and whom do you call? You caught me sleeping with the windows open. What sounds like footsteps in the woods, squirrels scurrying through dead leaves. Things are not what they seem. When will new leaves arrive? There is no one here. The greening has begun. Did I leave you? Say no more, no more. What season is it? What sky dare be so blue? And why those words? Spring comes to spite you, little cheat. Nest builder, where are you? Your hungry ones are coming, shrouded in shell. Speak up, tell. Elizabeth Howe of Sorrows, hanged 1692. I had to be my husband's eyes, the light that could not reach them, leading him about by the hand, tilling the land my father gave me, running the household. And for this, they would not let me come into the church of Ipswich. And for this, they said, I bewitched horses, cows, sows, and was the cause of sorrows that killed the Pearlie's little Hannah. No, never in all my life. I saw I had to be the husband, eyes, mouth, muscle, and took the lead and hanged for it. Tornado warning. When I think about it now, I'm fearless, but sometimes I still hear the hum of our minivan coming back from Iowa City, that 2-lane highway with too many white crosses, troopers flagging us down, ordering us to lie, belly down in the ditch, Iowa sky, imperial sky. Every spiny tendril that drops from a dark cloud reminds me of the bed fear made. Silence meant trouble, a brewing. I prayed for thunder. I welcomed the cackle of lightning, rages, yelling matches, but a sudden drop in pressure, the sucking out of sound. I got good at seeing it coming, sky purpling, moving over our house slanting into shadow. I went down to the cellar to weather each storm. Tornadoes are cruel. Of course, I had to leave him. This next poem is called I, Kikimora. Kikimora is a mythological female house spirit and said to attach itself to a particular house and disturb the inhabitants, particularly the male inhabitants. I Kikimora. The spider first classified the year I wed. Spider smaller than a speck of straw, spider of the bog, of swamp, wetland, marsh, quagmire, a mere wisp of khaki chaff, of hair, a sphinx moth, night butterfly, invisible wraith who slips through the keyhole after dark, both beautiful and ugly, whiny, glass half empty noisemaker, dish breaker, home wrecker, wet footprints across his heart. Woman climbs Statue of Liberty in protest. Teresa Patricia Okumu, convicted of trespassing, 2018. She said, I climbed to protect our nation's zero tolerance immigration policy. She said, I climbed to abolish ICE. They said trespasser. They said disorderly conduct. When she sat on the skirts of Lady Liberty, we watched them climb after her. They said, get down. Our hero said, I'm not discouraged. She made her bed and we watched and cheered and put a curse on those who wanted to arrest her for protesting, putting children into cages. Oh yes, we witches watched her carry our truth up and over that ledge like a beautiful soothsayer, strong and lithe. Goodbye, dark ages. We climb with her. We climb with her. I filed for divorce and sundry other acts of witchcraft. Therefore, I am the earthquake and its tectonic plate, a rock chucked into a languid lake. I am the headache that keeps you awake, an unexpected snake at the end of the rake, a rock tossed into a placid lake. I am the shake that rattles the gate and the faux pas that deflates the cake, a rock dropped into a flat lake. I am a plague outbreak, the thirst you can't slake, a rock flung into a tranquil lake and the rip in something opaque. I am the damn stake in the landscape, the firebreak that forsakes, a rock cast into a still lake, the mean old drake, the keepsake that's fake, a rock hurled into a serene lake, the cause of your toothache and the failed windbreak, every mistake, a rock pitched into a quiet lake. I am the one to hate, no one's namesake, the earthquake and its tectonic plate. It's two more. He punishes me with flowers. Knowing they're my favorite, he brings red Gerbers to the settlement meeting. Guilt schleps them back to my apartment. Guilt places them in the living room. I can barely look at them on the borrowed coffee table. Watch how I avert my eyes when I walk by. I decide to help them die, withhold water, resist investigating the stems for telltale signs of rot. They were scarlet, now they're darker. They're dried up blood, they sit there and insinuate. And the last poem, I Hecate. Hecate was the Greek goddess of crossroads. She ruled over the night, magic, and places where three roads meet. Between queen, liminal sorceress, crossroads guardian, story of my life. Who are you today, my ex would taunt. More than just a Gemini, I trimorphous, human form in triplicate, birth, love, death, maiden, mother, crone, moon, earth, underworld. I'll take triplicity over duplicity any day. Three heads are better, even if one has to be a dog, a bitch, dog, 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 serpent, horse, dog, cow, boar, even if it means I am witch, that old crone at the cauldron, stirring willows, dark yew, blackthorn. It took a torch, a key, a dagger to cut away a past. It took 30 years. It took all three of me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My gosh, Cindy, how are you doing that? That stuff on the page, how are you doing that? The rhyme. I called you DJ Sea Beach Earthquake. I hope that's a name I could hold to you now. That rhyme scheme was amazing in that poem. Oh, just chills, chills everywhere, absolutely everywhere. All right, okay. Rebecca, hi, nice to have you back. Cindy, thank you so much for that. Y'all have been getting so much love in the chat. Cannot wait to send you this chat after this reading. Just thank you so much for being so giving, the both of you, with your work and these manuscripts. And the way, like I said, and maybe it's this tech platform that you just felt like you were talking to us, right? And being here with us. So thank you so much for that. There was a couple of things that Gabe mentioned and put aside that some folks were saying. So Mary Louise said, we are all mourning with you because of your so real poetry. That was to Rebecca. Also, from Lynette to Rebecca, Rebecca, chills are running up and down my arms. Thank you so much for sharing your vulnerable love in much magical metaphors. And then Stephanie says about Cindy, thank you for these poems. The Salem witchcraft trials have intrigued and upset me since I researched it as a junior in high school. These poems bring these women and their accusers alive as no other consulted resource ever could. So important, the work you two are doing. And folks that are feeling so strongly about these two authors, please, in the chat box, now is the Q&A session. Let us know what your questions are. I'll actually start with one just as a primer to set us off. Cindy with that rhyming poem, and Rebecca with that abecedarian. Thinking about form to talk about those tougher subjects, whether it's grief or other tough subjects, how can you use form to write those poems that were harder to write before? Or how do you use form, rather? I don't know you.
Well, I guess I've used it in a couple ways. When I was writing the poems about the victims, I found that form helped me to manage all the material and to find a way into it. And then on the other hand, with the more personal poems, which are harder to write, again, form helped me also to write those. So to have some kind of structure to put it in, for me, is helpful in both ways, finding my way into the material and sort of helping me not get too emotional and sentimental. It sort of cushions me.
I love that. Yeah. A container really helps me as well. Don't use a lot of form, but another sort of container that I had when I was writing a lot of these poems, my father was re-diagnosed. His cancer came back at the beginning of November of 2012, and he died on the 29th of December. And this is right at the beginning of November, and I took part for many years in a writing endeavor that was a fundraiser for the Center for New Americans in Northampton, called 30 Poems in 30 Days, and where people get pledges for writing poems. And I did that for the first 7 years and was really involved with the project. When I took over Perugia, I had to stop also doing that in November because that's when we launch our books and things. But I was writing every day. So when I was in the hospital, I was having to write my poem. And I really think that if I didn't have that, I called it a container, but like that constraint to have to be responsible to writing something every day, because I do take my commitments seriously. So it made me write some things that were probably sort of near impossible to write about, and that I wouldn't have saved or remembered afterward if I hadn't written them down in that very moment.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, containers. And thinking about like writing schedules. And of course, you all know I'm a poet myself, and I know some of the folks on here might be asking, like, these two books, they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. So what are the writing processes like for the two of you? What are your writing routines? Or lack thereof?
I mean, you don't have to go first every time. I'll take this one first.
Okay.
Okay. I'm in hibernation mode right now. I have two jobs. I work for Perugia and I teach full time at Westfield State University. So kind of during the school year, I in many ways put my writing self to the side, and that works for me to have things percolate and wait, and come. It makes me feel really invested in January and in the summertime, to kind of have to wait for that. But I get involved in other ways. I can't
Mhm.
really do a lot of active writing during that time. So working on this book, over the last year, the editing happened and the copy editing happened right in the middle of 2 semesters. And
Mhm.
that was challenging, but also made me feel like, oh, my writing self is still alive while I'm doing my other jobs. So that was
Yeah.
a gift. Um, Writing community is really, really big for me. I had a large acknowledgement section at the end of the book trying to thank the different groups that I belong to, and many of those folks are here, and it's just really moving. The poems would not exist without them, without my groups to be there to read and critique and listen and re-listen and reread. So definitely
Yeah.
having groups and having to have homework and reading their work, keeps me reading as well. So writing
Yeah,
community.
definitely. Yeah, you make some excellent points, right? Like the whole process of writing isn't the actual writing a lot of the time too, right? It's like the inspiration and the incubating and creating those passions, right? And also the facilitating, not only the facilitating of your work, but facilitating what you like, what you find interest in, what material you feel like you can end up pulling from at some point, and that's usually from amongst your peers, right? So there's always ways to keep inspired. That's important too. I think a lot of younger writers also, and especially those like in college, they always think that they just need to be in a constant state of writing, right? But anyone that knows, anyone that has a book would know that there's a lot of other things that go into life, and then there's the book, right? So excellent, excellent. Cindy?
So I try to write in the mornings, or I shouldn't say I do poetry in the morning. It's not always writing new work. It could be revising, it could be submitting, but reading. I mean, I know where you are, Becky, with your jobs. I'm retired now a couple of years, but I used to only really be able to work on the weekends, right on the weekends. So, and then I'm in a groups, and we do a week-long sort of writing sprint every month, and so that's very helpful. Becky's in that group too, and we share the poems with each other. But I like to be kind of scheduled and disciplined about doing something every morning during the mornings. Yeah.
Awesome, excellent, excellent. Yeah, I think there's a happy balance, right? We need all of that. We need that time to schedule things. We need that time to incubate and explore. It's all good. It's all good. Abby says, I love to hear how other poets write, especially because no one seems to have the same process all year, every year. We live in chaos, and yet these poems, they happen. Carla also says, both of these readings were so personal, so intimate. We'll cherish both books. And Lynn asks, Cindy, what poems, if any, did you eliminate from the manuscript, and how did you make those decisions?
I didn't eliminate poems. Originally, I had 20. There were 20 victims of the Salem witch trials, and there were 13 women and 7 men. I think I have my math right, but ultimately, I eliminated the male victims from the book because as the book was being written, it really turned into, it became very feminist, and they just no longer had a place in it. There is a chapbook with all 20 victims, so I feel like they've been honored, but yes, so I eliminated them. And then I had several poems about sort of the witch kitsch, Salem atmosphere, and really only one of those made it into the book. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And Rebecca, same question. Any poems that didn't make it?
Yeah, so I guess I would answer that question by saying when I first sent my manuscript to CavanKerry, it was a completely different book. And it had been sort of knocking at the door of contests and reading periods and not, I sent it out like 55 times or something like that. So over
Wow,
the course of
the
like
work.
when I graduated with my
Yeah.
MFA, which was starting in 2015 to 2018 when I sent it to CavanKerry. And it was like something was not quite right with it, but I hadn't figured out what that was. And Gabe and Joan, I will say, basically volleyed it back to me. And they said, we really love this. I'm paraphrasing, but we're not ready to say yes to it in its current form. And they were so respectful. They said, this is what we see, and we would love to have you be part of our library and published by us if you see it that way. But it's your book, and you should do what you want to do. And what they had seen was that the book was in 4 sections, and the third and fourth were really kind of what are now the second and third. And the first were also elegiac and kind of, I always wondered if the book was too sad or too dark. And it was so, but what they thought was that the beginning, which was elegiac about other people and other losses and the natural world and like all of these other things, and they felt like those things detracted from the story of my dad, and that what was needed was more of his life and our relationship, so that my readers could feel along with me the loss of this man that I knew and loved so much. And it completely resonated with me 100%. The problem was, if I had all those poems, they would have already been in the book. So I had some of those poems, but I'm not usually a happy poet writer. So that was, anyway, I had to go back to the drawing board. I just took off the first 2 sections. They still exist in different, not even in sections, but I didn't throw away the poems, but I took them out, and I wrote some poems for the book. And I went through all my poems and did find some things that I had written or some starts, and kept writing, and some were written for the book. So that's what I took out, was half the original book.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's much better for it. So thank you, Gabe, and thank you, Joan, for helping me find what the book needed to be.
Yeah. Gabe and Joan are super good at that. It's really great that as publishers they work closely with our authors to try to be careful, right? Because these books are like our babies. These are our lifebloods, our well safes. So we definitely try to tread lightly and respectfully. Gabe did say, "Hey, I remember that Cindy had a similar experience with us for her book as well." He also said in his Gabe candor, "Sounds like you had an MFA manuscript submission by the time this manuscript came to us." After sending it to so many different places. On the pick of Gabe, and if anyone knows Gabe as the managing editor, he reads all of these manuscripts and these books over and over at every step of the way. And publishing is like a 90-step process with us. So Gabe says, "Rebecca, in The Highway, you write, writing about your death is a way to avoid writing about your life. Things I know, a finite set and fading by the day. It strikes me that your collection, with your careful attention to your father and his life philosophy, is a way in which your father continues to live. Can you talk about how writing these poems gave you an opportunity to commune with him?"
Oh, that's such a nice question. Thank you. Yeah, I think that line, when I first wrote that, it was like, I don't want to write all this stuff down, because then there won't be more things to write, and then I'll be done, and he'll be even more done, or something like that. And just the process of having to figure out what that first section was going to be, and go looking through my poems and go looking through my memories and feelings and talking to my family and things like that. That was a gift to have to go through that process. And absolutely, I feel it's not, this doesn't contain him, of course, or explain, or it doesn't try to do that. necessarily, or what we had as a relationship or anything. But yeah, I think, sorry, I've sort of lost the question because I started with that line, totally, but and I don't see it in the chat, but Gabe, let's see. Oh, there, no. Oh yeah. Oh, you were just saying grateful for the opportunity to meet, but thank you for letting me see that. Can you talk about how
yeah,
writing?
No, I think
I
think yeah, I think you kind of got to it, Rebecca. It's fine. I think this came back to our conversation in the beginning when you asked that really big question, and then you could take it in whichever direction you wanted to take it. No, yeah, I got it. It's totally cool. But what I did realize, you also did mention the containment, right? And the ideas of containers that we were throwing around. And this question's from Mary Louise, and this is for Cindy. And you said you called the forms of your poems containers. Cindy, is that your own term? Because you never heard it, because Mary Louise never heard it that way before. Never heard thinking of forms as containers. Can you maybe elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't claim that as my own term. Yeah, I don't recall where I've heard it, but yeah, I wouldn't want to own that. I know when I read Jill McDonough's book, Habeas Corpus, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but she writes, her book was about people who have been executed for, well, people that were incarcerated and were executed going way back through history. And she chose, there's all sonnets. And I don't know that she referred to it as a container, but it felt like being in prison. It's like she needed to keep that in like a little cell. So just another form of container, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And this is just me thinking big here. Would you all consider like poems you write containers, or would you consider them something more open and expanse with possibilities, or the possibilities exist within the container? I know that's a bit more like a philosophical or metaphorical question, but I'm interested if you'll have anything to say about that.
Well, when you just said open things, I thought, yeah, I thought I was going to say, yes, of course I do. But then I thought colander popped into my head, like things just falling out. Yeah, and you need to let them fall out, I would say. Like you don't want to have everything in there, and you can't possibly. So they're limited containers, even if they're not in a form. And they do help us keep things and hold things, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And a colander, like a strainer, right? Because you're kind of like sifting through things. It's like the spaghetti water. You're trying to sift through the spaghetti water of the poem to get to the pasta.
Okay, this is bordering on that the burning log from the other poet from last reading, Joseph Legoski.
Yeah, Joseph and the log. Yeah, the big ass log. That's what.
The big ass log and the spaghetti
big
water.
Ass log.
It's Maltby's Law, people.
there's a poem or a punk band in there somewhere. We got to figure out which one it is.
Yep.
We do. Okay. All right. Molly asks, what did you learn about daughterhood? Becky, and what did you learn about persecution? Cindy. Oh, okay. So the daughterhood was for Becky and persecution was for Cindy. Any new thoughts or ideas through the writing?
Okay, well, I can go first. It's time, Becky. Persecution. Well, when I studied the trials and spent a lot of time with the from trials, I just really how a lot of the things that still are happening today. So in terms of persecution, these, like history is never history. I have to say, with us. And there are examples of contemporary women that are persecuted for similar things. There's a couple poems in the book. I didn't read those, but about that. So I think that's what I learned, that even though I was aware of things still happening today, just the parallels with the, what happened 300 years ago is just very relevant today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I can't wait to read your book, Cindy. I have it, and I'm going to learn from it. I know.
Yeah, I can't wait to read yours, which I'm waiting for.
Thank you. Well, I'm not sure if people will learn about daughterhood from it or what I learned. I just was very, very blessed to have to be my father's daughter. I learned about, I guess, through his death and being part of his caretaking team, and I was, just part of it, and being there with my stepmom and my brothers, and making space for each other and figuring out how to do that together and take care of him. That was an incredible honor. And that taught me about, I guess, another aspect of my role of daughterhood, going through the experience of him dying. I remember hearing that he was, like, when he was first sick and I first got the, I have cancer call. And I just thought, I cannot go on. Like, I'm going to probably go into Great Meadows behind where he lives and just throw myself upon the ground. I just, like, I could imagine that. I couldn't imagine not being a daughter of my dad. And I guess, so maybe, I don't know, it endures. I still am. I was so lucky to have him while he was here. That doesn't go away. And I mean, like I said, I don't know what to think about souls, and I said all those things, and that I'm not moved by mystery. I'm pretty moved by mystery. But so I don't know, going through the whole experience, not just writing the poems. And I think he was someone who, I know he was, like, he wanted me to, live, and he was really proud of me. And these are hard poems to write. They're shared experience with other people who loved him, and I'm telling them, and it's my own way. And I'm not being exactly an obedient daughter in that way, because I'm telling what my truth is. And I think that I'm trying to do that in the most respectful way that I can, or in a respectful way. And I think that, I think that he would want me to say that in my own way, say some of the things that I've said in my own way. So I have negotiated. I've been, I talk to him and think about that.
Yeah, that's so real, and that's so excellent. Yeah, the respect of it all, first and foremost, and then after that, just what your truth and what that truth means, right? And having other people receive that, I think is important. You can hear me, right? I didn't mute myself. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks so much for that, Rebecca. Okay, so I think we're coming to a close. If there are no more questions, we'll do super exclusively at CavanKerry Press here, because we do so many goodies for those folks who still sit on. Thank you, everyone, for the 50 participants who are still here. So what is next for Cindy Veach and Rebecca Olander in the way of what else do you want to write about? What are some of your meanderings of thoughts and sheets you ponder? What's next? What are some ideas you're kicking around?
Well, that's
Cindy's like, listen, I just put this book out. I'm done. Don't ask me about any more ideas.
No, that's a good question. I mean, I actually have another book I've been working on, but it's not historical like my first two. So, and it's many poems about my father, who passed away in 2018. So your book, your reading's very emotional for me, Becky. It's like, really. And that's kind of, I'm living in a new town, Snoqualmie, Washington, and there's a river that's over here, and I'm learning about rivers. So who knows where that's going to go?
Excellent. Can't wait. I can't wait. Happy writing that.
It's
really.
A great thing to be learning about rivers. I mean, next up for me is January, when I can write again and read again. The group I'm in with Cindy, I basically opt in the summer months and in January. So I do have another book, the first half of this one got lopped off and reconfigured, and it's been I'm turning 50 next month, so that's what's next. And I've been around for a while and have a bunch of poems that are looking for a home. Yeah, so I'm really excited to be spending time with this book. It's nice. I have Perugia, and I have the Perugia book just coming out, as happens every fall. But I'm trying to take this in and feel. Oh my gosh!
Look at
Gabe?
that.
Gabe's the only one who has a copy, so it has to be
Super
Gabe.
exclusive.
I can't see your
Talking
face,
about
Gabe, behind my
exclusive.
book and Cindy's book. Yeah, I'm just gonna try to, even though I'm teaching and working, and even though this book is emotional, I am gonna try to be in it and feel happy, because this is what I intended to, have my work out in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of in the moment, but I am looking forward to January when I can read other things. I hope I get to read your book before then, Cindy. But it's right at the top of the pile, which is quite large, but it's at the top.
Excellent. And those are beautiful books. I'm actually querying our managing editor to see if he got on. I seem to have had one last question escape, and it was Gabe. So Gabe, if you want to come on and spotlight yourself, I'll spotlight you, buddy. Perfect. Cool. Right. If you want to come and ask your questions, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Cindy, this is one other question that I put together earlier tonight, which is also a statement. It's that one of the things I love about your collection is how you capture moments where the human potential for magic, and I put that in quotes, but it doesn't have to be, emerges into the real world, especially the magic within women that seems so often to be stifled by either societal norms, pressures, and obviously as well, unfortunately, violence. And so I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about how the expression of self, especially as a woman, is in its own bold way a form of magic.
That's a managing editor question.
Wow, what a question. I guess my answer is it really, it shouldn't be a form of magic, but unfortunately it seems like it appears and it becomes that way because it's magic for many women to be able to express themselves of who they really are as a woman and to fight for that. And so, and be bold. And so I guess we call it magic because it's so special, but in some ways it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't have to be that way, right? It shouldn't have to be that way. But that is sort of one of the threads of the book is women taking their magic back, because it feels like it was taken away. You look at the victims of the witch trials, their magic was taken away. They were just living as women. They weren't witches. They were just human beings, but, robbed. So we're taking it back.
Take that power back. Take that. Take it. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Cindy. And thank you, Rebecca, for fielding all these questions. Thank you, Gabe, for the last question. Thank you all the participants who still hung out with us until 15 minutes past our allotted time. Y'all just don't want to go anywhere. And actually, you know what? As a matter of fact, everyone can unmute. Everyone can clap it up. As you all are leaving, you can say something to our authors. I know all of you are friends and family here.
Nice job, Cindy. Nice job, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, pressmates.
Beautiful reading.
Wonderful. Tremendous poems.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks, Cindy.
Just beautiful, Becky. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rob.